and welcome to the ICT Pulse podcast. I'm Michelle Marius, your host and the editor and publisher of ICT Pulse, the online platform where we discuss ICT issues from a Caribbean perspective. In 2021, we embarked on a series on technology-based social enterprises, that is, tech businesses that have social impact among their core objectives. And one of the industries we focused on was farming, and we featured Akata farms in Grenada, which comprised 300 acres of competitive, climate-smart and resilient sustainable farms to address food security and youth engagement in agriculture and technology. Today, agriculture technology, or AgTech, has been gaining a lot of attention, with lots of entrepreneurs trying to figure out how to leverage the opportunities and the money that are available. So we thought it time to revisit Akata Farms nearly 4 years later to get an update on the venture and learn from its experience in AgTech. So to that end, we're delighted to have on the podcast once again the founder and CEO of Akata Farms, Bevon Chadel Charles. Bevon, welcome back.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, our last discussion in 2021 seems a distant memory, but thank you again for thinking about us and bringing us to the fore again. It's a privilege to be here.
Fantastic. And I mean, 2021, I was thinking about it and saying, but that was in the height of the pandemic. I mean, look at how much the world has changed. So it'd be wonderful to really hear about how Akata Farms has been doing, how you have been doing as well, and to really just see how tech and business in the region has evolved over the years. But to start us off, just give us a little refresher on what Akata Farms is and what it's trying to achieve.
Oh, thank you again. So Akata Farm is basically stands as a beacon of innovation in agriculture. It is more than just a farm. I see it as a revolution, a transformation in the agricultural landscape, marrying technology and sustainability and community development as we transform food systems. Our mission basically is to create a model that can be replicated not just in Grenada, across the Caribbean, but the world as well. That is productive, that is sustainable, that empowers community, that enables young women and youth to gather resources and to create ideas and implement those ideas. So it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of transformation, but agriculture is its core.
Okay, so what's happening at Akata Farm since we last spoke in 2021? I mean, it has been a while. It was still a relatively fledgling business. You were still quite new to the to the space and learning as you went along. So give us an update as to how the farm has been doing.
So since our last discussion, we have made a lot of remarkable strides. We have expanded our technology-based integration, diverse our offerings in terms of our crops, strengthen our community initiatives. Just to give an example of that, though I grew up in agriculture, it was more of traditional farming. And when we last spoke, just bridging a gap of leaving traditional farming and getting involved in AgTech or sustainable agriculture, the way I see it. So a lot of our production are based controlled environments. How can we innovate just the basic things that we normally have when it comes in terms of crop production, the way we feed our animals? How can we incorporate technology into that? So when we last spoke, we were just in the bud of that, trying to figure out how can we innovate without resources or without people knowing our name, and how can we do that productively? How can we do that sustainably? And at the same time, how can we, ensure that we are providing healthy, quality food, but also creating employment and opportunity for our people? So at Akata Farms, we started off to very traditional sense. And for our audience, traditional agriculture is basically, planting in soil and ground and so forth. And coming from a background where my father has been a farmer for many years and seeing the struggles and the difficulties that he had planting that way and operating a farm that way, I needed to do something different. My approach in terms of that was, if we do not have workers, they do not have that consistent labor supply. What do you do if you have a high demand of customers requiring your produce consistently? And this is one of the challenges that Akata Farm has. We have market. We are not able to produce to fulfill that market. So how do we incorporate technology and innovation in that agricultural space in order to achieve that? For us, basic examples like this, we have sweet potatoes. Oftentimes, sweet potato is planted in the ground and soil. For us, we incorporate, innovate the production itself of planting in 50-gallon grow bags. We put our own soil in that. And we put our siblings, and we have sometimes 3,000 50-gallon bags of sweet potato being planted. Just that step to innovate help us to incorporate pest management techniques. Of course, it's sustainable. We do not require much labor. And we try to incorporate such innovation and such thinking in our entire farm operations. In terms of a lot of our crops, we are very diverse in our production. It's a mix. Akata Farm is a mixed production. So we do crops, we do fruits, we do animals, we do poultry. So we needed to find a way to innovate that production, not just for our own needs, but also to demonstrate how agriculture has evolved over the years and how can we get our community, especially our young people, involved in such agricultural performance. So they too can take up that mantle in terms of Grenada's food security. So we are incorporating a lot of protective environments, greenhouses and shade rooms into that. And then we have evolved that in terms of how do we manage farms more efficiently, more effectively. So we have incorporated farm management systems. We have automated solar irrigation systems, all of that to improve our operation efficiency. And that's just a tip of the iceberg in terms of how we have really grown since our last conversation in 2021.
Right. Yes, that's amazing. And I think one of the things, there's so many things that you said that struck me, because certainly when we spoke, and it was along the lines of a social enterprise and what is the social good that you seem to be pursuing. And I guess it's really about youth and food security as well. I mean, whether or not we think about it like that, especially I think in the time of the pandemic when there were shortages that were experienced on various countries, that we are able to sustain ourselves and to have the youth engage. Tell me a little bit more about the experience with the youth and with communities. You also mentioned women. So how have you all been able to maybe craft, whether it's a program or how you engage with those communities to help to bring them on board, and probably what are you seeing in terms of results?
Awesome question. First, I want to start off. You mentioned about the social enterprise of it and being sustainable, and the pandemic really show us, not just in the Caribbean region and the world, the need to ensure that our national food security is in our own hands and we can able to control it, despite whatever natural disaster that might come. And I always put Akata Farms under this concept of under a dome. If you are locked off, for example, let's put it, the Caribbean region is closed off physically from the rest of the world, how do we tend to feed ourselves when our import bill is so ridiculous that we depend on outside world to feed our people? And it's that same concept that I use for Akata Farms when building our farm systems and building our community element. Yes, it's a social enterprise. Yes, we're for profit, but we wanted to use agriculture as a means to bring the community together, to empower them. We wanted able to train and mentor tech-savvy agriculturists, empower women, especially in agro-processing sector, to see value, because that's where the money comes from, the value added in our raw materials. So for the past, I think, 2 years, what we have done, I have co-founded an NGO, it's Grenada Agro-Tourism, that really focuses on agro-processing and farmers, providing them with necessary training and resources, in terms of food safety, what is required of them and their products if they have to export to the EU or the US or whatever, providing them with those resources, providing them with those grant opportunities, because we write a lot of grants whenever the calls are open, and we apply for grants for the cooperative. So these farmers and these agro-processors are able to have adequate funding to take their business further. But we also, as an NGO as well, always try to emphasize the need for community development. So you might have a farmer who's farming for his own sustenance, his family and so forth. He's producing and he's selling to hotels and so forth. How then can you get the community involved in that? Because for one issue we have in Grenada, it's pretty lasting. We have the theft of agricultural produce. And because I think for me, and I think one of the core reasons, because there's a disconnect between the enterprise themselves and what is happening in the community. The community is often left out. So I always emphasize the need to, if you're starting a business, always involve the community element in that. So what we have done as an NGO, if we're giving funding to our members, you have to have a community element to it, whether you're providing mentorship or guidance or some training. Or it's not just about employing people in the community. How then can you step it up? And we have done a lot of that in the past year in terms of applying for grants and ensuring that our members have those resources to take the business further, to scale, to protect to perfect the quality of their products, to find markets regionally and internationally, but as well the community element, whether it is bringing schools to you to provide that sort of training and that educational element of it, whether it is fostering our culture and heritage wherever our farms are located, because the majority of our farmers are located in very historic parts of our island and sometimes often on old estates. So how then can we emerge our community in that the transformation of our culture and our heritage, but in a sense, in the same time, focusing on agricultural sustainability. So the community for me is very essential in a part of Akata Farm's growth and development. People might tell me oftentimes, you're doing so much. Perhaps you just need to focus on making your farm profitable and raking in the millions. And then you focus when you get the money to focus on the community. And I always say no, because for me, my growth as Akata Farms is how do we bring that community involvement in that? And as what we are growing, what we're profiting, the community is doing that as well. So just to give you an example, our cooperative and as myself as Akata Farms, we applied, Grenada just launched a community-based agriculture, community-based tourism project. It was really to bring more activities in a tourism front to our communities. And oftentimes, a lot of the tourism activities are more in the urban areas and not in the rural areas of Grenada. So for me, what we did as an NGO, we targeted our farms and our agro processors, and we selected, I think it was 10 farms where we're going to create a tour. But we're also going to develop that community element of it. We're going to, how can we bring the community to our enterprises? So we have a lot of mentorship, we have training, we have farm to fork setting up, we have spas being built, tours where we have our young people now being trained to be tour guides and so forth. But it was all in the essence of how can the community benefit, not just tourists who's coming into our island or visitors, but our local markets as well, being able to immerse themselves in our culture and heritage. And at Akata Farms, what we're doing now, we're setting up some cottages in our farms. We're trying to create a retreat where the schools can come to Akata Farms and they can see what is being done as a sustainable farm, where the young children can see agriculture at its best. Smart greenhouses. They're able to see how farm feed is being made at our farms. And I think it's that education element is able to empower our youth. So yeah, so as I said, the community element is really important. It's very imperative, and I'm hoping to share that with every farmer in Grenada, and of course to spread that initiative across the Caribbean region because it's definitely important.
Indeed. And you have been mentioning about some of the technology that is being integrated into Akata Farms. And it had me wondering, though, if you can just talk about how technology has evolved in terms of the use of technology on Akata Farms. And I was even wondering in terms of, like, how do you see emerging technologies like AI, whether helping or hindering or somehow the impact that you see it having in agriculture?
Beautiful. When we first spoke in 2021, I had just gone, I just became tech driven. I don't have a tech background. But during COVID time, I took lots of courses, free courses on AI and coding and nanotechnology and all of that stuff, because I wanted to see how those technologies can transform the agricultural sector. And it's mind blowing. So just imagine the Caribbean region, we are not yet there in terms of our technological evolution, which means we have opportunities to explore. As a farmer, one of the challenges that we have, and I think, I will come with a solution during the conversation, farmers still treat farming as just farming and never as a business. And one of the challenges that they have was finding funding resources and support, because they do not manage their farms as a business. So we did a gap analysis a couple of months, sometime last year, to really identify how can we support farmers in that issue and provide a solution. So we are actually building a farm management and financial connectivity platform. It is AI driven, because what it enables the farmers to do is to input information in that platform and it give you a feedback. Because I have understood that data is very crucial in making timely decisions, whether it is data about weather patterns, whether it's pests, whatever it is. As a farmer, it is very imperative that we have information at our fingertips so we can make informed decisions and that we can make solutions as we go along. So what the platform does, for example, let's say you have a young farmer starting off and he wants to do a hydroponic system of lettuce. He puts that information in, and the platform tells him exactly the challenges that he may encounter or not, but also how to mitigate those risks. You have a built-in integrated pest management systems. It helps you to understand the weather patterns and also advanced data analytics for crop management. We are building it now for my farm exactly because we do so much at Akata farms. But the intent is to roll that out to other farms so they can have that resources as well. Also, in terms of just the digital aspect of agriculture, digital transformation for the use of agriculture. I mentioned a cooperative before and the NGO. We got some funding, and we are building a website to able to get our members' products outside. So we have that bridging that gap between our product and our customers, because we know that there's a huge gap in that. And we see that here firsthand in Grenada. You have farmers who have produce, you have hotels and supermarkets who want produce, but do not know where to find it. They do not know where to sell. So we're trying to bridge that gap as well. And we're going to use, of course, apps and so forth to get that going. But for me, I'm very passionate about technology in terms of how it will revolutionize agricultural sector. As I mentioned before, just having data. Having data is so crucial. I'll give another example. We proposed a project to map Grenada, GS mapping of Grenada, was to able to build a profile of every farmer in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. And that data would have been used for many purposes. The ministries were able to use it to get funding and resources and to be able to know who their farmers are, what the farmers are planting, and able to build strategic plans in order to help build our national food security. But most importantly, one of the challenges I mentioned before was pre-larceny, where farmers lost produce because of theft. And though this is not foolproof, but the idea was that you have the extension officers working along with the Ministry of Agriculture, working along with the pre-larceny unit. And what the system would allow the farmers to do is build a profile. Every farmer will have a unique barcode, and the extension officers will go out to each farmer regularly to update what the farmer is doing. Or the farmer might say, well, I have a challenge, I lost all my crops because of this issue. That extension officer writes it down. So let's say, for example, you have farmer A. He's planting 3,000 square feet of ginger. And the extension officer goes off. She records everything, his challenges, where he was marketed, who he intends to sell to, the issues that he's having as planting. He might not have in labor, he's bacon work. Whatever it is that farmer is facing, he records it. Farmer B does the same thing. But let's say, for example, Farmer A wakes up one morning and all his ginger is gone. Somebody come in and steal it, right? What then? Immediately, it's notified through our pre-larceny database that we have this amount of ginger that was stolen and is lost. And I think this is where we need to get our people conscientious of where their food comes from. And of course, we could build a campaign around that to know where is your food coming from. And as a farmer myself, but also as a consumer, it's a very imperative for me to understand who my farmers are and the condition in which I'm planting. So when the alert goes off, immediately supermarkets, hotels, vendors know ginger is missing. And whoever purchased ginger within 24 hours or 48 hours of that report was being made have to give evidence where they purchased that ginger. As I said, it's not foolproof, but it's how can we incorporate technology in that process, whether it's an app, whether it's a platform, whether it's a QR code, to able to get some sort of result in a pressing issue that's affecting every farmer in Grenada. Another example of a project that we're looking to launch is blockchain. We know for a fact in the Caribbean region, we have beautiful, beautiful, high quality raw products like nutmeg and cocoa. And oftentimes our farmers are the one that left with nothing. They are the ones who are planting and producing and making the heavy investment to ensure that we have products to make market demands for export demands. But they are not the ones reaping the benefit, the financial benefit. Another thing with blockchain is able now to have a transaction every time this product is sold. We can able to track whenever ounce of nutmeg leaves Grenada or pound of cocoa leaves Grenada, we can able to track it and see who is making the money. It's a way of ensuring that our farmers get value for their hard work. And these are some of the things that we're looking to build and to able to ensure that our farmers have the necessary technical support that's required. Simple thing as a farm registry database, so consumers know who our farmers are, for our hotels and supermarkets to know when products are available. These are things that technology have to get incorporated in our society itself to ensure that we break those barriers and we're able to bring for good quality products at the time when it's necessary and needed. So I see technology in the Caribbean region itself is just at a peak where we have to just latch onto it, see what is happening in the world, and of course, copy and paste, because I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. We have some amazing technological advancements globally that I believe if can be replicated, it can be tweaked a bit to suit our Caribbean needs. It can work wondrous. And I think this is the opportunity for our youth who are the tech savvy generation. They take more risk and they see what is not there. And I think it's a time for them now to be able to step forward and to make use of these opportunities. So I think in the next 10 years, 20 years from now, it's going to be awesome in terms of how technology is just not going to transform agriculture sector itself, but all sectors in the Caribbean region.
Yes, definitely in terms of the transformative nature of technology. And I think what our upcoming generations need to really understand is that agriculture today is not agriculture of 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, where oftentimes people got into agriculture because there was nothing else they could do. They needed to make a living, and they had access to a plot of land, and you did that because you didn't do well academically or you couldn't afford to go to continue whatever your studies might be. But here it is now that agriculture is becoming high tech, and you need to know how to use the technology properly to be able to fully leverage it and to take advantage of the opportunities that continue to emerge, but also to help to solve some of the problems like the predial larceny, which seems to be problematic across the region, especially in Jamaica, where I'm currently based. So looking at ways to track the movement of the goods, and even as you said, internationally, especially like through blockchain, and especially noting the quality of the products that we produce in the region. And I think sometimes we don't even fully appreciate it ourselves. That the quality of some of our produce is exceptional, and people pay a premium for it. And sometimes if they can, they sort of mix it with inferior products and then kind of still market it as somehow coming from the region. And yes, it may have whether or not, 10% of Grenada's cocoa in it, but the other 90% is of inferior quality coming from elsewhere. So you have things like that, just to say that, technology is going to be integral, I think, in helping to shape and advance agriculture in the region. But in talking about technology and AgTech, I mean, what are your thoughts about how everybody seems to be sort of jumping on the bandwagon, because it seems, quite popular these days, and there's a lot of money that is being targeted through AgTech?
Yeah, because I think one of the challenges, and we know one of the challenges we have that is affecting the agricultural sector is climate change. The raising water levels, seawater levels, and the higher temperatures, the longer dry seasons. This is affecting agriculture. So I think what is happening, it's a transformation of how can we mitigate climate change. And to me, honestly, AgTech or any tech solution agriculture is the way to go. There's the greenhouses, for instance, the shade rooms. We are seeing now controlled greenhouses environments. And everybody's latching onto that. The hydroponics and aquaponics. Yes, they are large investments than the traditional way, but if we have to mitigate climate change, these are things we have to incorporate in our agricultural space. So what you're seeing, a lot of emphasis is being placed on that. You're seeing a lot of funding being thrown around, a lot of conversations being thrown and being held to get our people up into that AgTech discussion and implementation. But I think also from a youth perspective, especially in the context of Grenada, where we have such a high import and we have our traditional farmers dominating our markets. We have climate change affecting us. There are not much financial penetration in the agricultural sector yet. The emphasis for smart agriculture is being pushed, and AgTech solution is being pushed as well. Because we want, I think many young people, they see agriculture as labor intensive. They see it as getting up in the morning from 6 o'clock and having to go with your fork and your cutlass and go and weed for the entire day and plant and hope to God that it comes, you're able to harvest it and make it and sell. But I think the conversation with AgTech is how can you mitigate those risks? You no longer have to have back-breaking work. Set up a greenhouse, do it correctly, as it should with your fans and your controlled environment. You're able to plant and harvest tomatoes and bell peppers throughout the year. Hydroponic systems, you can go to work and you can watch your security on your security camera by your phone, your operations. Of course, it helps to pre the last thing you know. But you're able to see your farm. You're able to see a hydroponic system, and you don't have to do much work with it because it's just a controlled environment where you have that water flowing and you're able to get lettuce or any leafy greens coming faster. It might take a lettuce for a month to 5 weeks to harvest. The hydroponic system depends on how correct you are with using the nutrients. You can harvest lettuce every 3 weeks, sometimes 2 weeks at the most. So what you're seeing, that conversation is being had. And I think it's when it comes to not having a lot of agriculture insurance, I think this is the way the banks are looking at it, a way to mitigate the risk of agriculture. If you have a greenhouse, you can build it correctly. You can able to have your produce year round, whether it is raining, whether it's sunlight, you're able to produce consistently. And I think that is where the conversation is being pushed because it's way to mitigate the risk of agriculture and, of course, climate change. And I know Grenada just recently, last week, Thursday, just came off having a Agri-Invest Forum. It's the first stop is in Grenada, and I'm hoping to see many more. And I know one of the discussions that we had was the AgTech, smart greenhouses, controlled environments, and a lot of investments are being placed into that. The Ministry of Agriculture in Grenada is launching a youth agriculture business project. And I'm hoping that a lot of the young people who are able to access that funding or training, able to look in that way, how can they incorporate that AgTech solution, whatever it is, whether it's a solar-powered irrigation system, whether it's a security camera to see your operation when you're not there, whether it's a greenhouse, a shade room, whatever it is, they're able to take advantage of it because it will help them to mitigate a lot of the risks that's affecting our productivity in Grenada and able to supply our hotels because we have high demands. Our hotels and our supermarkets, we have constant demand for produce, and what we do not have is the quantity of produce to able to supply that demand. I do honestly believe AgTech is one of the solutions we have to implement to able to solve that issue and that challenge, and of course through the Caribbean region as well.
Yes. I definitely appreciate in terms of the risks that you spoke about, and even just the fact that we are sort of caught in a bit of a catch-22 where the demand outstrips the supply locally. And then what you find though is that because you cannot supply consistently, the customers look elsewhere where they can get a consistent supply. But it then means though that the local farms, there's the challenge of trying to grow, trying to scale to thus meet the demand, but you can't necessarily you're going to there are going to be some false starts and fits and starts, and before you can probably get to a point where you can fully satisfy the need that appears to be on the ground. So I see the challenges, but at the same time, I think one of the good things is that the solutions that you all are trying to put in place in terms of the, I guess I would just call it like an exchange or the cooperative, whereby people can bring in the goods and you all can find a market, or the customers can give a sense as to what they're looking for, and then you can see how best you can meet the demand among all of the various farms connected with this platform. But I don't know if you also want to highlight any other challenges that you might see in terms of how people may encounter in trying to leverage the opportunities in AgTech that one mightn't fully understand, being still external to the industry. It's only once you get into it that you start to understand some of the challenges. I think you mentioned just the whole risk situation and just maybe trying to manage that, because that then helps you to get access to funding, or improve your chances of getting access to funding. And I guess certainly whether or not, depending on the technologies and what you're doing, just pretty larceny as well. But are there any others that you see probably even more specific to AgTech that we may not fully be aware of?
I think two stands out. The funding element of it, because just to build a greenhouse is expensive. So the funding element, I think is agriculture, any business on a whole, funding is always an issue. And then the next challenge would definitely have to be with the technology itself, because what we have lack thereof is we don't have the technology at our fingertips. You can see what is happening globally in Israel with agriculture and so forth, and the Netherlands, where you have these massive AgTech solutions being built and globally as well. But what we do not have in the Caribbean is the actual technological providers, the solution providers, people who are actually building and designing AgTech solutions for our farmers and our people. That's suited for our farmers and our people. We lack those two things, the technology part of it and the funding. The funding, I always say, is a major challenge because, of course, banks or financial institutions are there to make a profit. And there's so much risk involved in agriculture that they're very hesitant. So farmers definitely have to find other funding alternatives. And what we have seen is we have a lot of grants that's targeting NGOs or civil society cooperatives. You have them grants targeting individuals. But sometimes we might be focusing in a theme that is not really agriculture focused. What I've learned is this. Sometimes you have to widen your networks and get yourself involved in groups, as I mentioned, NGOs, who are able to require these fundings. And then you can able to tailor those funding into what you're doing. I mentioned before the cooperative. Yes, we're made up of agro-processors and farmers. And sometimes we have applied for, just to mention, we applied for the grant for a community tourism-based project. But majority of our people who in our cooperative who were successfully obtaining that grant are farmers and agro-processors. You might say, well, how that makes sense. But what we did, and I think it's a lesson learned, is you have a farm. It's in a community. And we want farmers to be able to produce healthy quality foods to our schools. How then can you bring the schools involved in your operations? Then you have tourists visiting Grenada, you have locals. You can drive tours, let them see what you're doing. in your farm operations. That is one way of finding funding, and you're looking at it in an alternative approach, able to get the necessary funding that you require. When you present certain things like that to a bank, they'll say, okay, well, you have risk, but you're able to think out of the box to be able to mitigate those risks. Even in terms of presenting yourself before a financial institution is a challenge for farmers. They do not treat agriculture as a business. They do not have the financials in place. They do not have records, nothing in place. And I think these are the sort of training we want to start to encourage and increase in Grenada across the Caribbean region. You have to treat your you have to treat your farm as a business, because that is how you're going to get investors invested into you. That's how you're going to get banks serious about what you're doing. You're able to see not just your production, your projections, but are able to see your farm as a business and something that can grow, something that can scale, despite all the challenges that you might face. So yes, funding is always an issue. And they say we have a tendency in Grenada that you're quicker to find funding to buy a car rather than start a business. And it's true, because you can use the car as a security. A lot of farmers getting started in agriculture do not have access to land. That's another challenge for anyone getting involved. And I guess I want to encourage young people to get involved in agriculture. Land is an issue. I know one of the solutions in Grenada that is being done. The Ministry of Agriculture is building a land bank program where they have government lands. And then they're encouraging the private sector, those who have land and our landowners, to put the lands, if they have it, up for lease, so they can be directed to those youths, so that they too have access to land, to able to, of course, to build their farms and to do all those things that I mentioned, to able to work towards our food security initiatives. So funding is always a challenge, and finding resources. But if you get yourself involved in development work in communities and advocacy and a joint organization, whether it's voluntary, let people know that this is what you're trying to do. Then you will see yourself finding resources and finding opportunities. It might not be aligned with what you want to do, but I bet you do this one way, opportunity might open, another might open, and it might circle back to exactly what you want. And I think I'm a living testimony of that, of wanting to get funding. And at first starting up Akata Farm, not having my finances in place, in order, not having my books in order, and then, and not being able to go to a bank and to get funding. And one of the simple things that we did was get registered as a business. We signed up with our tax revenue office. We signed up with our NIS insurance scheme. And I think it was 2020. One of our business development agencies had a COVID fund relief program, and we were successful in it because we have those box ticked. We had we were paying our tax, we were doing this, we were doing that, and we showed that we had our business set up. We might not be having the cash flow as expected, but we had our T's crossed and we have our boxes ticked, and we were able to acquire a grant. And that grant, we used that grant to do our irrigation system. We used that grant to build our rain harvesting system. We did not have, of course, we used it, and then what happened was we got some seeds. We got the seeds, but it was a donation. We got some corn seeds. We got some cotton seeds or something like that. And we planted that, and we made money, and we were able to invest that back into our business. So, of course, funding, we always have to find another alternative, and there's a lot to explore. Whether it's crowdfunding and so forth, you can do. You might have a passion for community development and you want to get things going. You set up a crowdfunding, get people involved. You set up podcasts and you get people to know what you're doing. You're able to see the funds raking. And of course, money management is important. You're not just getting the money, but able to implement it as the funding required. And therefore to manage it and to report it, because that too is essential. You need to have that credibility and that confidence so that people then can invest into you. So all of those have to be tied in. But technology is the other challenge I mentioned. For instance, UNDP had an innovation challenge in Grenada. We run it for 3 years. And I want to just touch on here in terms of lack of solutions, of having solution providers. And we applied for the funding in 2021, and I proposed that same pre-Elasticity project, and we were not successful in it. But we applied again in 2023, and that's where we applied for the farm management and financial connectivity platform. Because I mentioned farmers are not recording their information as they should, and they're not being able to present themselves in front of a bank, because banks are looking for things. So this platform helps to resolve that. So yes, we did a gap analysis to figure out what it is, what was needed. Pest management, all of that. So we fit all of those challenges within that platform. So it's like a one-stop shop. You want technical support, you're able to have a list of technical agencies who are able to provide resources and toolkits for farmers. All of that will be in platform. But here the challenge came in. I needed to find someone to build that platform. And I wanted to be built and owned by Akata Farms. I wanted to hire a technological company who were able to build this platform just the way that I wanted, and able for me to own the rights and all of that for the platform when it's finally built. Because I do have a growth strategy for this project. And the challenge that we encountered, we interviewed solution providers, digital solution enablers, and they were not meshing. I was not getting what I wanted. I didn't want to use a piggyback anyone else's platform or anyone else's resources. I wanted to build this platform from scratch. It doesn't matter how difficult it was to be built, but most importantly, I wanted to able to ensure that I am able to build build it in a way that I envision it. Is for farmers. Farmers are able to navigate the platform and able to see it workable and able to solve a problem. One digital provider said to me, "Oh, we can use Salesforce." Sure, I have used Salesforce before. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to be able to kind of build a financial system like QuickBooks into that platform. You know what I mean? It was a difficult thing to be able to get that built. So one thing I did, I started interviewing web designers and developers in the Caribbean region. And that we were able to put a team together to build this platform. But just the lack of digital solution providers, people have great ideas, people want to do things, but I'm very intentional in what I do. And I wanted to ensure that if we're doing this platform, it has to be done right, because it would be a miss and it's funding is going to be wasted. And I wanted to be able to work with a team that could be able to do it. But we do not have, and I think this is where the opportunity comes in. We do not have much digital providers. And I think as we're seeing more need and we do more gap analysis to understand the different barriers that is facing in agricultural sector or whatever sector in the Caribbean region, we can have things being built. So we need our young people to be trained in coding and web design and all of that beautiful stuff to able now to present themselves, to able to form a company for themselves, or to be hired by one, or to outsource some sort of tech solution. So we're able to bring these solutions to our people as we need it. So yeah, so the technology we need it and the funding we need it. But as I said, it's understanding the markets and to really understand what is, look at what is happening globally and how we can replicate that and tweak it to suit the needs of our Caribbean people. Because we have, farm management system that has been successfully built and implemented in countries like Peru. I have studied them and I realized, yeah, sure, it can work. But one thing I have learned in agriculture, what might work in another country would definitely might not work in Grenada because we have that cultural element in it. Or people think a certain way, or people eat a certain way, or people buy a certain way. And our farmers that can be very stubborn creatures, we want to be able to build something that can suit their cultural needs in a sense. It might be agricultural perspective, but there's a cultural element in it that I wanted to harness, and I needed to be able to build a platform to be able to solve all of that. So those are the two, well, I say profound challenges I see in terms of agriculture and the tech space in the Caribbean region, especially in Grenada right now.
Fantastic. I mean, I was nodding my head because I think so much, especially from the tech perspective, is that I think too, in our consciousness, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and that then it sort of pushes us down a line where you use existing solutions and you try to make it work. And oftentimes what happens is that it doesn't truly fulfill your needs, but it might fulfill 70%, 60%, and then you just sort of abandon the rest of it and then you find the frictions eventually become too much and you fall out of love with it and you're left kind of holding the bag. So I really appreciate that you have been insistent on trying to get something built from the ground up that suits the needs and will fulfill the vision that you have. But I think just sort of pivoting go ahead.
I just wanted to add here in terms of the challenges between the tech and the funding, the interlink, because you might have young people right now who have a brilliant solution but no money to build it. So
There
it's
is
all
that.
is there is that. So yeah, you might have beautiful projects sitting there, and I know there are many, many, many beautiful AgTech solutions that we need, but they do not have the funding to implement it. And sometimes even I remember one time I myself at Akata Farm, we were trying to partner with a different company to do something in terms of building a greenhouse as a service. And we needed to we have everything lined up. We needed to get funding to build the model itself. And to this day, yeah, we couldn't get funding for it, but it will go back soon. So yeah.
I am optimistic as well. But it also leads me, though, to let's talk about just maybe the startup space a little bit more broadly and maybe even tech startups as well. Because, all right, so the funding we know is a challenge. And here it is that you have a great idea. There's only so much you can do, but before you may need like a little influx of capital to build a prototype, so proof of concept. And certainly even after you do that, and maybe you're able to get the operation off the ground, but if you want it to grow, you're going to need some more additional, some additional capital coming in. And what you often have happening is that either the business it can sort of subsist, it can exist at a certain level, but it cannot grow, or the owners, I mean, you become demotivated. They may have been subsidizing the business in various ways. They can't draw a full living wage from it. And so their interest, they eventually lose interest or just have to sadly just, close it down or farm it out to somebody else to manage and so on and move their attention elsewhere. So I think, that is one of the reasons why we probably may have higher than desired fail rate among startups generally, and even tech businesses in particular. I don't know if you can share any sort of insights, even, I mean, we have touched on the money situation. If you see any other reasons why tech startups might fail in the region.
I'm glad you mentioned that beautiful question. We tend to see a lot of failure rates, especially in tech space, because sometimes passion doesn't sell. We are passionate about something, but sometimes we have to have a practical eye to it. Can it work? And is it something that is innovative enough? Is it something that is not yet existing? And a lot of us, I'm too very guilty of that. When we have an idea in our head, oh my goodness, not even our pastor could convince us otherwise, because we are so determined and so stubborn that it will work. Sure, sometimes it can work, but sometimes we're looking at it in a different lens. That's why I always believe you have to surround yourself with people who are in the space, people who have built things successfully, so they can mentor and guide you. And we have such resources in the Caribbean. Just one on the tip of my tongue right now is Canoe Innovation Hub, and I think they are pioneering tech itself in the Caribbean region, whether it's fintech or whatever tech it is, they are doing that in the Caribbean region. And you have an idea, you join onto their program, and there is training of building that idea into a prototype, getting you surrounded by people in Silicon Valley. That exposure itself gets you thinking, okay, yeah, I might have a tech solution, but perhaps it's scaled only for, it's in a sense, you might think it's only for the Caribbean because we look at it in a narrow lens. But when you're able to broaden your horizon, you're able to see and to able to network with these people who have built things and to see how they scale it, that's where the revolution begins. That's where the evolution begins because you see it in a different lens. So, for one example, Canoe Innovation Hub does that. You have an idea, just an idea in your thought of something that you think might work, and you join onto their program. They have partnered with Draper University to take you, and of course, there's training, there's programs you have to go through. But if you stick to it, you take your ego Silicon Valley, you're able to pitch your idea, and you have mentors and people to able to help you work on that business model, because that business model is key. That is what sells. And if you're able to have that business model, you're able to tick off all the boxes, you're able to have a great pitch and able to get people who are able to fund that solution. But as I said, is able to, as I said, looking for other alternatives. But sitting and waiting and telling a bank you want funding to build this tech is not going to happen. So that is where you have to find other alternatives and explore what can be there. And you might not get funding. For example, I have been to programs where I joined the program to get training and some things that I lacked. And it enabled me to build a network of people to able to solve a solution I didn't think my business had. To solve a problem I didn't think my business had. But it also enabled me to broaden that network and to have mentors and guiders who I can call for any issue that I might have right now and able to put me in line with people who not don't just have the funding, people who have the resources and the skill set to build something and scale. Because to scale something that's born from the Caribbean region is very difficult because oftentimes we have built it and built that model and enclosed ourselves in our Caribbean region and have not looked at it in a different alternative. Because you might question, you might have a tech startup in building in New York. You might have the same resources that someone from the Caribbean region might have. And you might say, but why this one is able to get $1 million seed funding and a Caribbean region might not? It's exposure and building that network that comes in. And I think that's what we need to start teaching our people in the Caribbean region. You need to expose yourself. You need to share your ideas. The quick to say, oh, they'll steal my ideas. They might steal my ideas and steal my business plan. This has happened. But there's a risk you're taking. But you have to expose yourself and see how the rest of the world thinks. Because the way we think about money, that's not the way others, who's those successful techpreneurs see money. I had the opportunity of going to Rome at the FAO's World Food Forum last year, and I witnessed some pitches from I think it was 20 innovators, tech innovators in agriculture space, and I was blown away to see how they were able to start the enterprise, the tech journey from nothing, and to scale it to multi-million-dollar seed funding initiatives just by able to pitch and just pitching, and being able to connect with the right people at the right time. And I think we need to have more exposure of that in the Caribbean. Perhaps we need to have more pitch competitions in the Caribbean, but also pitching. You might not be able to get funding. Not everyone will be able to get funding, but able to get the resources to able to perfect your pitch in the next round, but able to get maybe the toolkit or some sort of hands-on mentorship or guidance to help you take it further. But I know the challenges. It's very difficult to start anything in the Caribbean region. And I think a lot of it has to do with our mindset, how we think oftentimes. And we tend to say we're passionate about something. Passion does not sell. We need to have passion yet to keep us motivated, but we need to look at things in a practical lens to see, is it making sense or not? Are we wasting time? Are we wasting resources? Do we need to take it a different approach? When we start doing that, we're able to connect with the right people, build our resources, build our network. I think we tend to see an increasing rate of more successful businesses, not just in the tech space.
Yes, I love the statement you're making. Passion does not sell. I'm actually sitting down writing out what probably is going to be the title of this episode, which will include that phrase.
Yeah, he doesn't sell.
Yes, and it's so true. And I think sometimes we feel as if because we are passionate about it, everybody else should be passionate. And it might be,
yeah.
And while others might appreciate what whatever it is that you're trying to promote, they may not be as committed as you are, and therefore not as eager to part with their hard-earned cash in the process.
Definitely. I remember my first pitch. I'll give you an example of that. A first pitch I had, and of course I'm passionate about agriculture. I was passionate, and I pitched Tractor Farm's model. And I remember the investor was like, who cares? Who cares about your passion? I don't care about your passion. I want to know how I'm going to make my money back.
Indeed.
Passion does not sell. Sometimes you pass, oh, this can work. This can work. Oh, it will work because we are in it. We're going to do it. No. When you come even before a bank, they want to see the practical approach of it. If something goes wrong, how do we know? Because passion is not going to solve it. How are you going to resolve this issue in a timely fashion and protect my investment? So yeah, passion does not sell at all. You need to have a practical approach.
Fantastic. I guess we should be bringing our conversation to a close shortly, but I wanted to ask, in terms of just the business model that you had for Akata Farms, and even when you started and how it has evolved, give us a sense as to what you thought of Akata Farms when you started, or what you had in mind, where it is now, and thus how maybe your business model and even your approach to the business has evolved over time.
One thing about businesses, whether it's starting off or not, every day a challenge is going to come, like going to push you off track. Something's going to happen to derail your plans, and whether it is not getting funding all the time, or you get funding and you're not able to pay it back because of whatever challenges that you may face, all of this can impede your growth process. For me, I think my advantage was understanding those risks before I got involved. Of when I first started Akata Farms, I think I had no problems listed out than even ways to make money in the farm. I wanted, if this happened, I don't need to panic. If this happened, I don't need to scratch my head and to wonder what is going to happen next. And perhaps it was a proactive thing to do, was to build the business on challenges first. If Grenada is closed off, for example, what happened in COVID, how do I continue to feed my customers consistently? So I needed to implement mitigated risk into the farm system itself. And of course, that developed our model. The thing about Akata Farm's model, it can be replicated anywhere. And once there's a farmer who's looking to grow and to produce, it can be replicated. That's the beauty of this agriculture. There's nothing difficult about it if it do right. And yes, it might be lack of resources, but if you use your resources and you're able to stretch it to do multiple things, so you can see it grow as it should. But another thing for me was involving that community element in it as well, because yeah, we want to produce high quality foods to our customers and to be able to meet market demands. But agriculture in its pure sense is developing communities, is getting our schools educated on agriculture, the need for them to produce and to eat local, the need for our young women and our women in our society to get up and to be self-sufficient and self-sustained, our young men on the block to be able to make a living for themselves. And agriculture to me is the easiest way of doing that. How you do it, that might be something you have to figure out, whatever type of production might go involved in. But if you have a core and you say, I want to do it more than just making a profit, I want to be able to develop my people and to create space for them, it can be replicated anywhere. And I think that's the beauty of what it is that we try to do at Akata Farms, that it doesn't matter to be Grenada, the Caribbean, or even Africa, it can be done because we have some passionate farmers, but we need to give them that practical approach. But it can be replicated. And I think the scalability of that is, as you know, they say small shareholder farmers cannot really scale that much. But if you're able to look at it from a standpoint of being able to merge yourself in different components of agriculture, whether it's AgTech or the community development part, you'll see yourself getting more resources. And those resources you can use to scale, whether you have multiple farms in Grenada or multiple farms in the Caribbean. That is the aim of Akata Farms. You're able to single-handedly or support the government of Grenada to able to achieve our food security, so we can reduce our imports, the same time ensuring our farmers get the money that they deserve for every crop that is sold, but at the same time create value added so our agro-processing industry can flourish. And the same thing, we can do the same thing in Barbados in a different way, or St. Lucia, wherever, Jamaica. And the same thing we can do to Africa. So we have a scalability model, something that can scale and replicate it globally. But it's just understanding the community and what the community needs and how agriculture can fit into that. So I think that's the beauty of what I'm trying to do. So every day is something, every day something new is happening. Every day a new opportunity comes, but it all fits in that ecosystem that we're trying to build.
Yes. And what have been some important lessons you have learned since we spoke in 2021?
Oh, I think my greatest lessons last time we spoke was financial management. Oh my goodness. Getting funding is easy for me, but I cannot manage the funding. Listen, The farm itself have multiple revenue streams. It can create the money, but managing it, not. So I had to step away from that, honestly, and put a team in place to manage that, to grow the money, invest back into the farm, invest back in the community, and be able to see that ripple effect. So for me, the greatest lessons was farm management, and I have taken my time to able to learn about do financial courses in my weak areas, QuickBooks and all of that stuff. To able to learn as well. Another lesson for me is not taking on more than I can chew. I tend to do that a lot of things are happening. Having a growing enterprise, being part of a cooperative when I'm doing majority of the grant writing, being part of the community element of it, being regional coordinator for this, regional coordinator for that. So much traveling. You're doing too much. But I let it boast to say, once it's climate change and agriculture and youth, is all right. Right? It's not a stress to me. I'm killing multiple birds with one stone, but I'm able to have a conversation in different rooms about the same topic. So it's not to say I have to struggle about anything, it's about the same topic: climate change, agriculture, youth empowerment, technology. So I could be part of this cooperative here and this NGO there, but it's the same conversation I'm having and the same work that I'm trying to do because they all come together to fit into that big picture. Another lesson for me is understanding there's no balance when coming to be an entrepreneur. This thing about having finding balance, that doesn't work. That's a myth. When you are passionate, yes, about your business and you want it to grow and you want it to succeed, you have to make all necessary risks and sacrifices that you can make. And oftentimes your personal life tend to suffer. For me, I would say I knew that off the bat there was no balance. So everybody in my circle know, listen, I want to get this done. So some things might have to step aside for a moment. I have two beautiful girls and they're involved in that growth process of the business. Not to say when I travel, they want to come with me, they might come, but I make sure I bring back home for something to keep them occupied. When we go to the farm, they're involved. They're doing the homework on the riverside. I have to watch them while I'm doing something. So I'm able to bring all of that element into it. It's not balanced, it's not perfect, but I think for me is understanding that off the bat and not trying to make excuses when things go wrong. Another a key learning point for me was, and I think it always continues, building that network part of it, building a network, and understanding the people who are for you, because some people might come latch on for other, the reasons, but growing a network is important. Able to communicate and share my passion and share my knowledge is essential to get the youth involved, especially, but also understanding that I needed to kind of protect my close circle as well. That mental health is important. So those are my key takeaways for the past couple of years. And growth itself there has been a lot of growth for me personally, business wise as well. And I just gratitude is so important to God. That I put everything before Him. I don't make a decision. I don't sign a contract before I put it to God. Because I do believe He gave me a purpose to transform this thing that I'm trying to do. He know my intent, and I just have to leave it up to Him. Let He set the course. So yeah.
Yes. Some profound lessons. I mean, and I've been writing as well, because as you said, that work-life balance, which we're all supposedly aspiring to, is a myth when you have a business that you're trying to keep going. And even just the whole issue of the financial management, I appreciated it, because I think sometimes what people don't fully understand, especially when you're getting funds from others, is the accountability that is attached, and oftentimes the admin associated with reporting on the monies, how you have used it, and what are the deliverables and the milestones that you've hit, and that in it's its own headache. So sometimes getting the funds, as welcome as it is, there's just a whole lot of work that comes with it as well. So, I certainly also appreciate, playing to your strengths. So as much as, you with trying to have the vision and ideate and quality control and all of these sorts of things. Managing the finances would it may have been more than you could do within the time allocated, So I fully understand that. And I think just to conclude, my final question, which was what I most likely asked you the last time, is where do you see Akata Farms in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh, well, sometimes I'll have to be hesitant when I share that bold dream, because I do believe in if your dreams do not scare you, it's not big enough. And I think every morning I wake up terrified. But I do see Akata Farms in the next 5 years. In terms of the context of Grenada, we have achieved our national food security mandate, that we're able to cut that import bill at least by 50%. Farmers are able to have better life. They're not only farming for their own sustenance. Our school programs, our tuck shops, the only local produce, fruits and vegetables throughout. We have products being pumped out of Grenada, made by Grenada. That is a vision for Grenada. And the Caribbean region, same thing. We're able to reduce our import. So that means building farms across the Caribbean region, training more farmers, providing, at least directing farmers with where the resources are, and building as much farms as possible, raising funding, and maybe definitely doing the same thing in Africa. Whatever it is, I mean, it's big in terms of, and I see in terms of the future of food, the way technology is evolving, it can be scary if we do not prepare ourselves. Because we see that now, technology, if we're not careful, can replace our people, and our people will be competing with machines. What then is going to happen to the way that we eat? This conversation we may have, we might be doing it on the go, or maybe in a hologram. And the Sunday meals that we want to share with our family might be something of the past, because we have to be working extra time to compete with a machine. So our way of food, the way we plan, the way we eat, the way we eat on the go is going to change. And I want to be there at the forefront to have that conversation. I'm able to try to develop an innovative solution to help take our people there. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Bevon, for joining us again. And it was wonderful to just learn more about what is happening at Akata Farms and farming in Grenada. And I mean, there's so many parallels with what is happening in the region, the challenges that agriculture is facing. And I think what I really appreciate is that you have been trying to tackle it head on in your little space, and hopefully sharing a lot of your experiences and insights with the world through the organizations with which you engage. And I really just want to applaud your efforts. And as a small business and a female-run business, congratulations for all of your success. And I think also for having the insight, for recognizing the community element that perhaps is so integral that somehow we don't always think about, especially as entrepreneurs and business owners. We think about wealth creation for ourselves and our shareholders and all of these things. But what about the community? And perhaps because you are working in agriculture, where the human element is still integral, especially in the region, that you have been able to ensure that it is part of the DNA of Akata Farms and a lot of the initiatives with which you are involved. And I really want to salute you for that as well. So thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having us. Perhaps do not wait for the next 4 years.
Will do.
But thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to the ICT Pulse podcast. You can find links to some of the things we talked about on our website, ict-pulse.com. The music is from the composition The Last Word, Chérie by Andy Narrell. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving us a 5-star review, as it will help others find the show. You can email us at info@ict-pulse.com or drop us a note on social media at ICT Pulse, either on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We hope you'll join us again for our next episode. Take care.